Can you introduce yourself?
Thanks for having me here to start with. My name is Matteo Rizzi. I'm Italian, but I live in Portugal, in Lisbon. And I've been in the financial services and fintech space for the past 20-something years.
What do you think is the kind of most interesting, exciting, maybe even thing in fintech right now?
So in general, I think that almost like a reality check. This is the most exciting thing, because we spent the last 15 years in this Game of Thrones battle, in who is going to win the war between the banks and the fintechs. Now, I think that the industry understood two things. One is that, you need to collaborate at the end of the day to find out, what is best for the clients, one. Second is that the time of throwing money at fintechs and hoping to sue later a lot of money is not really helping. And, and the big world pause of COVID, helped, also the fintech space to understand this. And the third is that, probably financial institution or startups itself are not the only players right now. Now with embedded finance, open data, there are very large corporations that could claim to be as fintech as a bank. So that is the trend, in my opinion.
That was going to be my next question. Where do you think that this space is evolving?
Is evolving in this hybrid, adaptable entities that don't do a single, a single things. For example, so take a supermarket, for example, or a big distribution players. Okay, they can play a role in the payment space, in the credit space, in the buy now pay later, in selling insurances, and all this without having a single financial services license. So that's the trend, right? So if I can enable someone that is not regulated to arrogate a financial service, then everything becomes fintech, basically.
But do you see any risks there?
So the risk is basically that, when you are not regulated, you can run with the money of the clients and nobody will oblige you to pay it back. Okay, of course, there is a reason why banks are banks, is because, they have obligations, towards their clients. They have a fixed amount of that. It's 100K in euro, fixed amount of money that if they are in your deposit, they have to give it back in case of bankruptcy, etc. So if you are, if you're banking with a supermarket and the supermarket bankrupts, well, tough luck. So that's one of the risks. And the second is fragmentation. So the fact that you might have a lot of players doing the same thing in a given market, and some of these players will need to consolidate, right? Otherwise, the space is going to be too crowded. I personally invest in Africa. So if you ask me, where is the coolest part of the planet with the most potential and the highest degrees of innovation, is Africa.
And could you give us some example for the coolest projects in the fintech that are happening in Africa right now?
Since you have not seen my presentation, I can give you the example that I give in my presentation. So, by the way, we are organizing. I also have I'm an entrepreneur as well, and I have my own a consulting and company. We are organizing the largest fintech event in Africa in Kigali in June. Kigali is the capital of Rwanda, which is like the Switzerland of Africa. And is a 3-day event. 4 presidents are coming, ministers, regulators, investors. And so in Rwanda, there is one project that is a card to actually take buses in the city, okay? And this company is called Tap and Go. They have 1.3 million cards, which is 300,000 more than the population of the capital. But you know how many bank accounts there are in the whole Rwanda, 260,000. So these startups have 4 times the cards than the bank accounts of the country. The moment they become a payment service provider, and they are about to do it, they become the largest financial institution of the country. And we are talking about a mobility startup that start doing financial services.
So they're starting as a startup, going into becoming like a banking institution.
A financial services player, rather, because they will not have the license of a bank. They will not be allowed to actually take deposits, but they can have the cards charged. So in Africa, having a couple of dollars is one day expenses in the card. So everything has its own proportions, and this is one example. There are plenty of others, and take into the account that the moment you start including what I call the bottom billions, the GDP of Africa will grow 10%. And this is not me saying this, all the consultants of the planet, they say it, and the McKinseys of this world. So, but it's not about the growth. It's just that, continent is polarizing. You love it or you hate it, and I love it.
And where do you see the fintech of Europe or the US going in the future?
So I want to say that the non-emerging markets fintech is basically following the same pattern, okay, more or less. And so if you take Europe, for example, everything started in London, with Level 39, the first accelerators and incubators. Then, quickly, a few more hubs claimed, to be the hub for something, So Luxembourg, for example, is all about, funds distribution and asset management, for example. Then there is, Paris that built the largest, until the next one will build the largest, but whatever, startup space, because as a government, they invested a lot, and fintech is a big part of it. And then you have Estonia, with, digital public good infrastructure that allows the identity to build the financial services on top. So, and in the US, it's sort of the same. You have different poles. Now Miami, became the crypto, kingdom, in the US. But what is most important is that banks are not following up anymore. They become, main players, because they understand that with the right type of partnerships, with the trust that they have, with the history that they have, they can claim a position thanks to the technology and this type of partnership with fintechs that they couldn't claim before. So where is it going? Is going to, the one who's going to win is the one who can accompany this endless changement and adaptation of the market that now, as I said before, involves other players. I'll give you an example. One of the largest lenders in Europe is IKEA, because they do credit, right? You can buy installments, right? So IKEA, they actually invested in a fintech that will do profiling of their clients. So this is an example of a non-financial institution, huge lender, partnering with a fintech, nothing to do with the furniture's business, and together become a huge lender in Europe. We are going to see more and more of this type of partnerships.
And we've been talking a lot about AI here during the Infoshare. And how do you think AI will influence the fintech sector?
So I'm glad you don't talk about blockchain or crypto. So now, AI is the new crypto, so it's the new buzzword, which is fine. And as per the fact that distributed ledgers are nothing else than distributed databases that we dealt with 20 years ago, AI and machine learnings are not new. Now they became a popular topic because everyone can use ChatGPT on the phone, but quantitative trading is far from being new. So, and I'm not going to talk about the huge like bullshit bingo question or how AI is influencing the financial services. There are a couple of verticals. One is actually not the most obvious one. One not in, the asset manager is the obvious one. You know, applying AI to quantitative analysis, great. The asset managers are slowly adopting this. There are a few sort of forthcoming players. The other will follow, great. I think that there is a lot of wasted time in attending and understanding the client in banking. This is where AI can actually, one, save a lot of time to the banks in understanding what the customer, who the customer is and what they want, but also they will use this time better to actually be able to address what I call the mass affluent, business. So nobody cares about, if you have too little. Everyone cares if you have a lot, but everyone in the middle is always sort of complicated to serve. This is where AI could help.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. Do you have any ideas or examples even of what is starting to happen in that space?
So there are a few companies that are, for example, that are combining biometrics to be able to detect the customer way early when, for example, they come to the branch, and then before actually the customer sits in front of someone who can talk, they have the opportunity to immediately give to the bank teller a complete profile of the client and some of the suggestions that they might or might not need. This is miles away of, how you sit and you wait and you come, and the guy is not the same guy you speak with 2 weeks ago. You need to explain everything. So, like customer service, by far. Related to this, call centers. Call centers are a pain in the, in the butt for, many like consumer businesses, finance being, the king of them. And there is a lot of inefficiencies, So these are like automatizing a part of it will not only save time, but also improve efficiency by far. I could go on, because the application are, but they're not new. The new thing is that it's faster and way, the interface of the clients is way easier to use. Today it becomes so friendly, it's becoming like talking at the phone to use AI, right? Before it was just a privilege of the few.
So you think that thanks to AI, the banking will become, first of all, the working in the banking sector will become more efficient, but also from the kind of customer perspective, it will become more personalized.
Absolutely. So we even talk about contextual banking is actually a thing, and it goes beyond that. So banking will become such a personalized service that, LGBTQ community, is having their own banking today because there is a startup that is building up a digital bank for LGBTQ community, because they will have their own way of thinking of, credit, timing, payments, planning, insurances, this, or, without getting too, I want to say, even controversial, the bank for teachers in the UK. There is a digital bank that only serves the teachers. Why? Because teachers go on holidays for 2 months. They don't work. So they have needs that you and I, unless you're a teacher and I don't know, but I'm not one, they don't have. So this, and this is today is in the reactive mode. So I want to build a bank for people that are like this. In the future, you will be able to build on the spot the service regardless who is in front of you.
So you think that we'll go into that direction, that we won't have those few big institutions that kind of say do it all, but we'll have more players, but more specialized.
Yes, or you will have big institutions that will gear themselves to have different type of partners for different type of contexts. I mean, again, it's not a matter of who is going to play, it's how they are going to play. So it could be I can give you examples of very large global institutions that are building startup studios themselves. So instead of investing in a startup, they will just build one because they have the clients, they have the technology. Today, technology is a commodity. The only thing they need to find out is the right founders team. So this is a way for a bank to say, I am not like the old dinosaur sort of with one size fit all type of product. I can build a product to serve a segment of the customers that today I cannot reach.
You see that becoming more and more popular because I think the fact that the banks are working with startups is now like a normal thing. We're kind of used to it, but banks actually creating new startups, it's a little bit a different direction.
Well, it is, and actually is one of the, remember, I was talking about, a constant adaptability, and it's actually, a big theme of my presentation is I call it the infinite adaptability, which is the only way for any company to survive. And it is true that it is not that popular, but it's more popular than you think because right now, I mean, until now, banks bought startups instead of building them, okay? Some invest in them, but in some cases, when the problem is so sharp and crisp to be boxed, building a solution with the right intrapreneur, as I call them, is so easy.
But I think it's a bit tricky because it's a different thing to actually work with a startup who can, because a small organization can iterate faster and you just kind of deal with their almost ready product, let's say, and integrate it. But to build something inside in that big organizations where you have to, be able to also work fast, but you still have to apply the regulation part, the security part, and all of that.
Yep. So thanks God there are ways of doing it smartly, and it is a decision that very often is not one bank doing it or one financial institution. Sometimes it's just a collaboration between a bank and a client, and they just do they build a company together. It doesn't have to be juridically inside the bank, right? It could be an incubator that is owned by the bank, but every startup is a special purpose vehicle, So it's again, don't look at the actual execution, so not the what, but the how. So the philosophy becomes different. It's not anymore, I have a problem and I'm go and look for 10 possible startups so I spend time in go looking for them, right? But if I just have the one or two, the right combination of intra and entrepreneurs that can solve the problem, I go straight to them and I say, this is what I need to be solved. The approach is different. I see it a lot, actually.
I think the key there is that entrepreneurial kind of spirit and vibe. So probably that's something that the organizations need to foster in themselves to be able to actually build it and make that cooperation or that actually creation of new startup happen.
I wrote a book about it. It's called Talents and Rebels, Dealing with Corporate Misfits. The corporate misfits sometimes, actually in large corporations, most of the times, there are intrapreneurs. So there are actually people that are a little bit outside the corporate boxes, They don't know where to stand, but that's the theory and the thesis is that if you manage to group them and to build the right links with the rest of the organization, you make these things that become, that seem so far, you make them possible.
Thank you very much.
You're really welcome. Thank you.